Good morning. It is July 3rd, and as everybody's getting ready for the big cookout, and they want the lawn all pristine for all the visitors to fawn over and be picky and fussy about, you are listening to OSU Turf Team Times. And so online today, we got Dr. Dave Gardner, Dr. Tyler Carr, Dr. Xiaowei Wu, and Mr. Todd Hicks. Dr. Wu, can you give us an insect update, please?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I would like to give an update on the beetles and grub activities. So this time you may see Japanese beetle adults fly around in around the flowering plants and attracted to some other plants like wild grape leaves and some others. And at the dusk, you may see the chief adults flying around as well. So we have been monitoring these weevil populations. Sorry, not weevil, beetle activities. And we have set up traps around, and we found actually good numbers. For the Japanese beetle traps, we found up to 100 to 150 Japanese beetles every other day. This is the highest number. But of course, these numbers vary greatly within locations. Some locations attract more beetles than the others. And for the chafers, we found last Friday found 30. Actually, no, it was on Monday, we found 30 musk chafers, and then on Wednesday we found 64. So these numbers are definitely increasing. These chafers, we use a night trap to attract them. So you may see that recently we have frequent rainfalls and high moisture conditions contribute to the adult emergence, and also that could improve the egg survival because we know that the eggs they need to absorb good moisture to for the larvae to hatch. So if you have not put out preventive treatment yet, I will encourage you to do so. July is a very good timing to do preventive control of the white grubs. And the control options can include some of the anthracic diamide products that include the chlorantraniliprole and tetraniliprole, and also neonicotinoids product can be used as well. There are also some combo products containing these chemicals. Those will work too. However, make sure that you apply enough active ingredient to target the white grubs. Please keep in mind that pyrethroids do not provide grub control. And another thing I want to mention that do not rely on using the traps to remove beetles because they can attract more than they can catch. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. Something that may be an obvious statement. All right, Dr. Gardner, weeds that are literally growing over my feet.
Oh, come now, Ed. It's not that bad. Or maybe it is because we finally had some. I was going to say,
Sorry, Dr. Gardner, I was going to interrupt. I had a colleague yesterday who went weeding with a dingo, not hand
oh,
weeding. He literally went with a dingo to tear it up.
well, no, I was going to say since we had, like the rough weather the last week, it's like now that we finally had some rain, it's like the grass was stressed enough that the only plants that are taking up the water from the rain are all of the weeds. And so, yes, they're kind of exploding. Hey, this is what crabgrass looks like at the OTF Center right now. It's 2 or 3 tiller. And when it comes to controlling crabgrass at this time of the year, you can use either quinclorac or tepramazone. Personally, I like the combination of the two, a half a rate of each. If you mow to reduce the seed head development, which that isn't a thing right at the moment, but when the plant begins to flower, make sure that you're mowing. One of the issues there is that sometimes in the summertime we don't mow as often because the grass isn't growing. But if you just let the seed heads go, that kind of guarantees that you're going to have a problem in future years. But then also know that pre-emergent herbicides are still very effective. So where you are having an issue with crabgrass now, make sure you know where those areas are so that you can put out a pre-emergence herbicide next year. But tepramazone, marketed originally as Pylex, it works very well as a standalone active ingredient. 1 or 2 applications. The use rate is really low though. So this is good for commercial applicators. Homeowners, it's one, both difficult to find this, two, it's kind of expensive, and three, at 1.5 fluid ounces per acre. That's not something that you're going to want to try to hand can, even if that was on the label and it's not. Um, Again, though, the combination of quinclorac and topramazone, I like that because it's a little bit less sensitive to timing of application. In other words, right now is not a great time to try to use quinclorac by itself, but topramazone and quinclorac together, you can go ahead and put that application out now. Again, a half a label rate of each of those tends to work very, very well. But just a reminder, because I know that quinclorac is very popular. If you're using that as your crabgrass herbicide and you're not tank mixing with topramazone, a couple of reminders. One, make sure it really is crabgrass. You can also get good control of foxtail and a couple of other grasses, but make sure, crabgrass is the one that we're mainly targeting. And especially now at 2 to 3 tiller, if you're out using quinclorac now, plan on repeating that application in 2 to 3 weeks. Look, I've been working with this herbicide for a quarter of a century, and it kind of gives me the willies every time that somebody gives me a contract to do a study trying to use quinclorac at this time of the year, because I know it's not going to work all that well. Quinclorac works much better if you apply it in mid-July or later, after the crabgrass has matured in size. Okay. But my comment about making sure that it really is crabgrass, I got this picture this week and kind of got a kick out of it, because if you went out there and you were like, oh, that's just big crabgrass, and you tried to spray it, well, you wouldn't get a whole lot of activity with quinclorac, because this is Johnson grass. And kind of a funny thing, I didn't see a lot of Johnson grass early in my career, but this is something that seems like for whatever reason it's becoming more prevalent on lawns. I have a theory. I think Johnson grass is one of those weeds that's relatively good at acquiring resistance to the herbicides that farmers are using to try to control it. And so as they get less control, we're seeing more dispersion of the weeds into the areas that we're trying to manage too. But regardless, this particular one is difficult to control in home lawns. And at our field day, one of the things that I'm going to cover is how to identify grasses using the seed head, because that's actually the more reliable way to differentiate our different grassy weeds. This one in particular has a very distinctive seed head that makes it difficult or impossible to confuse with any of the other weeds that we see in turf. But that barnyard grass, a lot of these other coarser textured grasses, again, identifying the grass and picking the right herbicide for post-emergence control is very important. Now, if you have foxtail or barnyard grass, you can use any of our grassy herbicides, quinclorac or phenoxyprop or topramazone. But if it's Johnson grass or goosegrass, quinclorac does not work particularly well on either of those. So then you're left with either phenoxyprop or topramazone. And the Johnson grass in particular, one of the classes of herbicides that Johnson grass has acquired resistance to includes phenoxyprop. And so topramazone might be the option there. Field paspalum is another grass that we see growing very quickly right now, and topramazone is the herbicide of choice for that. Anytime now through August, 2 applications, 3 weeks apart. It's kind of warm out, right? The grass is a little bit more stressed in these conditions, and so herbicides can exacerbate that stress. And so you want to use caution when spraying weeds when conditions are hot, and especially if it's been dry for a while. For broadleaf weed control, make sure that you're, for the most part, using amine formulations. And try to avoid spraying when temperatures are above 70 or certainly above 80 degrees. I used to tell people that when I worked in the landscaping industry in the mid 90s, I sprayed in the middle of the night, so I did all of my lawn applications between like 3:50 in the morning, because that was first light in Chicago at that time of the year, to like 7 a.m. Look, I know nobody works at that time of the day. All right. So I get it. I was a weirdo. But just try to avoid spraying in excessively warm conditions. One, it's you're probably going to increase the chances of non-target injury to the ornamentals. Two, if the herbicide dries too quickly, you're not going to get as good a control. So try to spray in cooler temperatures. And then, again, back to this whole thing about spraying at this time of the year when conditions are kind of hot and kind of dry. I got this question this week. If I tank mix a three-way with quinclorac and halosulfuron, should I add the MSO or the NIS? And it's like, oh my. So you're trying to control broadleaves and crabgrass and sedges all in one application. I get it, trying to save time and money by combining everything, but see, the methylated seed oil is what they recommend to add to quinclorac. It's it dissolves the leaf wax in the cuticle and makes it so that more of the quinclorac gets absorbed, but that's a slightly different action than the non-ionic surfactant, which is what's recommended for the sedge control product. And so, the idea, or when I got this question, the problem with questions like that is that this is something that's generally under researched at universities. The bottom line is that we tend to do a lot of trials where we have companies who make a contribution to the Ohio State University, for our research efforts, and chemical companies do that. The companies that produce the surfactants and some of the other additives in the tank tend to not do that. And so we don't have as much data about that, but I can say generally speaking, either the MSO or the non-ionic surfactant will improve your weed control, but it can also increase the phytotoxicity to the turf, especially in warmer conditions. So do use extra caution, especially if tank mixing a lot of active ingredients. And then finally, since we've had a lot of spotty rain showers, I had a question this week about, how soon after you make an application can it rain and you get away with getting good control? Well, the label is your guide. That's based on years of research as to how long after an application is made you have to wait before irrigation or rainfall hits that turf. Sometimes you can get away with it raining sooner. So, for example, right after the pandemic, a lot of our industry guys came out to the OTF Center to help clean the facility up, and they sprayed a very popular three-way broadleaf herbicide at 9 in the morning. It rained at 9:40 in the morning, and we still got great control of the broadleaf weeds. But that doesn't mean that we would always see that. And so, again, you want to use caution, let the label be your guide when it comes to timing relative to rain events. Okay, Ed, I meant to be short and sweet this week, and I accidentally started rambling endlessly. I apologize. But
They're
I'm done.
used to it, Dave. But you did add the fact that you're a weirdo and you sprayed at 3 a.m. in Chicago. So
But nobody
that's
does
up for
that.
all of it.
I get it. Does that.
Someone who's conscientious. Mr. Todd Hicks with death and destruction on the fungal pathogen front.
Good day, everybody. Well, it's certainly been very interesting to be a turf pathologist here the first part of summer, which means it's really a struggle bus for the rest of you trying to manage turf. Just about everything known to man right now is hitting. Probably 90% of our turf diseases that we normally get in the summer are active or have been active so far. So the hot sheet list is as follows. If you're dealing with turf tall fescue, managing it, there's probably a 99% chance you are in the midst of a battle with brown patch, Rhizoctonia solani. Dr. Carr is probably going to cover this here after me, but do not try to fertilize your way out of this problem. Brown patch loves juiced up or over fertilized fescue, and you'll just exacerbate the problem. If you are dealing with it, good news is in the next week or so, it looks like our weather pattern is going to switch a bit, where we're going to get a little more breezes and a little less humidity, and especially our nighttime humidity is going to disappear, which means the brown patch is going to exacerbate a little bit, but it still could come back. July is the month, end of the month, into August, where it usually kicks off. So if you don't do something to fix the problem or prevent the problem further, you're probably going to see it sneak back up to you in a month. For those of you that dealt with red thread, it's probably gone away a little bit due to the excessive heat. But again, once we fall back into that 86-degree-ish weather pattern, less humidity, it'll fire itself back up. You'll see it again. The big threat right now for everybody, whether it's homeowners or professional turf, is dollar spot. It's not been a big issue, but as of yesterday morning, we had people talking about having heavy snows in the roughs on golf courses, which means lots of mycelium. So dollar spot's just around the corner. It sits and waits. It doesn't go away and then have to build itself back up. It'll hit a certain level and the weather pattern will change and it will just put the brakes on and stop. And it starts right here where it left off and all it does is increase. So I'd be on the lookout for that. If I was a golf course or somebody that was able to spray products for dollar spot, I'd be looking at a combo product this week for the next 7 days because brown patch and dollar spot and leaf spot are your three big hitters right now. So maybe something with a strobilurin in it from the strobe family to cover brown patch and leaf spot. And then I'd look at something that was a strong dollar spot product. So I had at least those three biggies tied up for the next 7 days. That's all I got right now, Ed.
Thank you, Todd. Tyler, one thing, Shoei had a follow on about ABW before Dr. Carr gets in there.
Sure. Sorry, I forgot to mention about my favorite insect, the Anirugas weevil, which I always want to keep it updated. At this moment, you may see ABW adult emergence. Adults around if you're working on a golf course, and the adult emergence started about 2 weeks ago in central and southern Ohio, and in northern Ohio is just started or about to start. So if your first generation ABW adults would the first generation ABW population were not successfully controlled, you can target the adults and second generation larvae. But pyrethroids should be used with caution, especially if you use it in the spring already, because repeated applications of the same chemical category can lead to resistance development or build up the resistance levels. So if you do not control them successfully, you can take action this moment and in July as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. Tyler.
Okay. Yeah, to piggyback off of Todd, tons of brown patch. I seeded my lawn with tall fescue last fall, and I put no fertilizer out on it at all, and it is everywhere. It's unreal. And this is an improved blend of turf type tall fescue. And so I do want to reiterate what he was saying. We do not want to over fertilize these areas during the summer for multiple reasons, but I wouldn't be afraid to have a little bit of nitrogen out there, especially as we're going to have a little bit better temperature conditions for growth, just to be able to grow out of some of this damage. I'm not talking about even putting a half a pound of nitrogen down per 1,000 square feet. I'm thinking around a quarter pound, maybe less of nitrogen, just to get it to grow a little bit. There's been some research out there suggesting that small amounts of nitrogen should not increase brown patch incidence. It can help with recovery, which is what we're about to have, hopefully. I would ideally like that to be mostly in a slow release form during the summer, especially since we may have a high burn potential with some of these quick release sources this time of year. So reach out if you have any questions about that. But we kind of need to play the fine line on too much versus not enough. Because if it's very lean, it's going to stick around for a while because you're probably not mowing it off. The next thing is, okay, go ahead.
Tyler, do you have a number in mind for percent slow release? Are you
Yeah,
looking
right.
like a 75% or a 50?
I would say at least 50%
Okay.
right now.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you can go higher, that's better right now. I just don't want you to get burned
Thanks.
on the turf. Yeah. So we're getting that time of year. It's kind of something a lot of us have been waiting for. We can actually feel good about seeding in the next couple months. So if we remember from last year, this is about the time where Mother Nature started turning off the water. And we weren't able to really get any seed down. Then we were forced with putting out a lot of ryegrass this fall in a lot of areas, and it's been something that Todd's probably loved because there's a ton of disease on ryegrass this time of year. So start thinking about if you need to reestablish some areas, start thinking about how much seed you need, where you want to seed it, what type of grasses you want to put out in these areas. Um, I would focus on getting grasses that are more disease resistant. So we have some bent grass cultivars at our turf facility that are way more dollar spot resistant than some of the older genetics. Could possibly limit your reduce your fungicide use. We want grasses that are more drought resistant too. So if we hit a year like we had last year, we'll be in better shape. So that's using more tall fescue, turf type tall fescue over bluegrass in lawns. Those are more drought resistant typically. Um, and just focus on your timing of seeding too. Now is a really good time to start thinking about how do I need to prep my seed bed? When do I want to get the seed out? With bluegrasses, you want to get it out August 15 to September 15. For things like tall fescue and perennial ryegrass, bentgrass, you can probably get into the end of September. So start thinking about that because it's coming up soon. And if you need to do any groundwork or need to spray out any areas, now's the time to begin that. But looking like, or now start the time to start thinking about it. But looking over the next couple weeks, it looks like we should have enough rain. I'm not as concerned right now about drought starting yet. So hopefully the trend continues on having enough water. We've been a little wet. We can balance it out a little bit. But looking forward to the fall when we can get some seed out, recover a lot of these areas where people have been struggling for the last year. I visited a golf course yesterday that they said from the fall they lost about 90% of their fairways from drought. They had their pond dried up. A lot of those areas have recovered this over the year, and they're going to be doing some seeding this fall. So good luck to everyone on that. Reach out if you need any guidance or anything moving forward. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. One thing that we were just talking about before we come on was the fact that I noticed last week a product called Slow Mo conditioner or lawn conditioner, and the active ingredient in it was trinexapac ethyl, and that's a plant growth regulator. And this product was available to homeowners. It's one that we have not come across in that type of setting previously amongst us, and it caused some surprise. Um, we'll talk a little bit more about that going forward, but potentially it's a product that homeowners will be interested in if you're trying to reduce the frequency of mowing. But the accuracy or precision or quality of it, or the response, maybe more so the appropriate term that you're expecting from it, might be a little bit different than what we see. The other thing to make note of is soil temperatures have been above 80 degrees up in northern Ohio on a 2-inch amended soil root zone under low cut turf. So not 2-inch height, but closer to greens height turf. So we are probably going to start seeing further issues as far as things like summer patch and fairy ring, Todd, I think will continue to flare up. Before I leave us all go, Todd, you have a comment? You've unmuted yourself, a burning comment? No?
Are you asking if I have a burning comment?
Yeah, you had unmuted yourself. I'm like, he's got something to say. No.
No,
Okay.
I just want to make sure there wasn't any background noise causing problems. So no,
Okay. So,
I just think if you're managing high end turf, golf course, sports fields, your first line of defense is cultural controls. You know, taking that dew off in the morning, proper sharp mowing. When you go out to spray, if you're spending a lot of money on fungicides and stuff, for God's sakes, put it out at 2 gallons per 1,000 square foot. Do not shortcut yourself on your greens tees, or if you got a pitch, whether it's football, bowling, whatever it is. Put out the right amount. Put the product where it needs to go. If you're going after a root pathogen, water it in right when you get done. If not, get it on the foliage and let it dry properly. But it's a lot better to save what you got right now, because I keep saying this. It's not going to get any better till about September at this point in time. Roots are going to get shorter. Diseases are going to get more frequent. You're going to get more play because the weather's wonderful or warm. So, you expect a lot of wear and tear. So anything you can do to reduce that. I've been preaching to people solid tine aeration, as small as you can get, just to open that up, get some air down in there, get some drainage, some places for the roots to grow. Anything you can do to help that plant be healthy, that's your first line of defense. And then let the fungicides come in and knock stuff down and take care of the big stuff.
Yeah, I knew you had a pressing comment, Todd. One last thing that Tyler did not mention, I'm assuming it was an oversight. A reminder that the 2 field days coming up, both the OTF field day and the Olka field day, dates for those are, Tyler, August 5th and 6th. Is that correct? So if you're getting emails about registration, there's some very good information going on, and there's also hands-on learning focus as well. So take the opportunity to get involved with those 2 events. Other than that, enjoy the forts, plenty of hot dogs, plenty of beverages, and be safe in the heat. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you, folks.